You're listening to Sean Henry's Becoming, a podcast that focuses on the emotional journey of an entrepreneur from the thought of their business to the execution and beyond. I am your host, Sean Henry, a serial entrepreneur, speaker, real estate investor, landlord, 21-year retired Army veteran, and author of When the Bank Says No. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs to talk about their processes and the lessons they've learned along the way. Fasten your seatbelts. The journey is rough, but rewarding.
I worked for Verizon right out of college and then started doing the catering on the side with Table for Two. And then I had a friend who had me cater a large, probably the largest event that I've done at this point for the Capital Jazz Fest. He was an entrepreneur and he was hosting a party like for the Capital Jazz Fest for his clients, sort of like a thank you. And doing that, initially I didn't want to do it. I was like, you know, my company is called Table for Two, not Table for 300-400. And he said to me plainly, he was like, Cheryl, he said, what are you going to do? Not take my money?
Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Sean Henry's Becoming. Today, we have a yummy show. We have the owner of Cookie Gurlie, Cheryl Pressley, and we're so excited, super excited to have her on with us. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm doing great, Sean. Just great.
That is
making cookies, making people smile.
Absolutely. I don't think you can give someone a cookie without them smiling.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from the DC area, and I've transplanted myself down in North Carolina to spend time and to be with my mother, who had some health issues. And so I've just decided to bloom where I've been planted.
Okay. And do you have any siblings?
No, I don't.
Okay. The only child. I was the only child for 11 years, and then my sister popped up. So so that's a blessing to be able to be down with your mom and also living your dream as an entrepreneur. Did you grow up with any entrepreneurs in your household?
No, not really. But I grew up with the mindset that I could do whatever it is I wanted to do, and I didn't have to be pigeonholed into just doing one thing. I could try my hand at several different things, and whatever I liked, you know, and could make money at, then go for it. So my family has been very, very supportive.
Oh, that's always helpful, especially being an entrepreneur. You need that support, that tribe is what I call it, whether it's family or friends or just the people around you, always pushing you and letting you know that you can be the best you that you can be. So that's great. Were there any hobbies or interests that led you into your current business?
Well, I've always loved to cook, and I've always loved to bake specifically. And actually, let me back up a little bit, because I didn't really start cooking until I moved out on my own, but I always baked when I was a kid with my grandmother, with my aunties, with my mom, who makes amazing cakes. And so that kind of appealed to me a little more than just straight cooking, like meals, so to speak. But I did, at one point, one of my businesses, I did have a catering company. and I did a lot of cooking, but my company was called Table for Two, and I just did small, intimate meals, particularly for my guy friends who wanted to impress, their lady friends, or if they were having small family gatherings, that kind of thing. But where I found myself shining more so is with the dessert. And so that kind of led me into, realizing what my focal point should be with what I prepare for folks.
And what about the dessert made you hone in on that?
Well, with the dessert, that's like the last portion of your meal. I mean, and people can like, the appetizer, the main course, and, the cocktails or the wine pairing and all of that that goes along with it. But the dessert is like the very last thing that people will generally walk away with that taste still in their mouth. And so, and they smile at that if it's a really good dessert. If it's a really good dessert, they're walking away and they're smiling. They're like, oh my gosh, the meal was great, but the dessert was just like, it just capped it off. It just made the night, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And you said your previous business was Table for Two. So entrepreneurs, the business that we're doing now, most of the time is not the one that we started with. So when
Hmm.
did you realize you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Um, Probably when I was working for corporate America. I worked for, it's now Verizon. I worked for Verizon right out of college. And um, it's kind of like a convoluted backstory, but I worked for Verizon right out of college and then started doing the catering on the side with Table for Two. And then I had a friend who had me cater a large, um, probably the largest event that I've done at this point for the Capitol Jazz Fest. He was an entrepreneur and he was hosting um, a party like for the Capitol Jazz Fest for his clients, sort of like a thank you. And doing that, initially I didn't want to do it. I was like, my company is called Table for Two, not Table for Three, 400. And he said to me plainly, he was like, Cheryl, he said, what are you going to do? Not take my money?
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And so with that, being put in your face like that, you have to think logically. And so I started doing his, client events. And then that led me into my second entrepreneurial gig, which was event planning. And his secretary actually turned me on to a program at George Washington University for event planning. And so I got the company that I was working for at the time to pay for me to go back to school for event planning with every intention to go into the public relations department. But then that didn't happen before I could get into that department. My position that I was in, the whole team got laid off. And so that kind of kicked me into high gear with event planning. I hit the sidewalk and decided that I wanted to do corporate events more so than weddings or social events. And then while I was probably maybe like 2 years, 2 or 3 years into that, and my mother was here in North Carolina and she fell and fractured her spine. And so I came down to be with her with full intention of still making my mark here and doing corporate events and going back and forth when I could into the DC area because I was finally at the point where um, wasn't knocking on doors so much. I was having repeat clients, but then it became very difficult to do the back and forth with my mom's situation. And so I decided to just try and make it here. But then it wasn't so much the corporate culture here in terms of events, and this area that I'm in was at one point a huge textile area, and all of those jobs went to Mexico. So corporations and textile mills were shutting down. And so I tried to get into weddings, but that didn't work so well, just in terms of the level of, with the weddings that I had done, with the level of wedding planning, it wasn't the same here. And I found it very difficult to adjust. And so I kind of took a step back for a while, and then started doing some retail work basically. And my cousin's wife developed pancreatic cancer, and when I would go and visit, she would ask me to bring her cookies because she knew I loved to bake, and we came up with all kinds of different flavors and things. And I would try them out with, friends and family here and coworkers and such, and before I would take them to her in New Jersey. And then when she passed, unfortunately, folks kept asking me, you know, can I still get those cookies? How much would you charge me to make those cookies? And so again, I guess that was like the second time money was really being put in my face, and it's like, how could I turn it down? And then Cookie Gurlie was born. And here I am 6 years later, just rolling the dough, so to speak.
Well, congratulations, definitely on 6 years. And you are doing this full time. You're a full time entrepreneur.
I am a full-time entrepreneur. Yep.
And that is so amazing. A lot of entrepreneurs, I believe, they start their business hoping and praying and working very, very hard to be a full-time entrepreneur, a full-time employee in their own business. So congratulations, hats off to you for sure.
Thank you.
So are you baking your cookies by yourself? Do you have help, or do you have a staff?
I have part-time help in the sales capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and in the spring and summer, I have actually just last year I hired someone to help me in the kitchen, because spring, summer, I'm really busy, and then in the fall it kind of drops off, and then Thanksgiving and Christmas, it picks up again, and then it's kind of like slow after Christmas, and now that we're a couple of weeks before Valentine's Day, it's starting to pick up again.
Okay.
So I have seasonal help, I guess you could say.
Okay, I was gonna ask. So cookies are seasonal. Did
Mm-hmm.
you get did you start like in your own home kitchen, or did you get a commercial kitchen? Where do you bake your cookies?
Actually, I bake in my home. I had to have the Department of Agriculture come out and inspect my home kitchen. And so I am fully at home. My whole first floor, basically, when you walk in, all you see is stuff for cookies. And my business advisor, when I talked to him about actually setting up a storefront, or getting a building, what he has advised me, which makes so much sense when we talked about it, was to stay under my own roof as long as I possibly can, to keep my overhead as low as possible. But then also for me, what I'd like to do in addition to that is to be able to have more wholesale accounts than retail, so that I don't have to depend so much on foot traffic coming to a storefront. Not that that's not great, and that's not wonderful, would be a large part of a storefront, but I'd love to have, like, if I have a slow day at the storefront, I'd love to be able to know that, oh, I've got this delivery on this side of town. So that's still going to be income coming in.
You said when you go into your home, the first level is your kitchen and everything else cookie. So did you remodel your kitchen to be a commercial kitchen, or is it still, a traditional uh, home kitchen?
It's still a traditional home kitchen, but I've taken out like the um, dining room furniture, and in the living room, when you walk in, I live in a townhouse, so when you walk in, it's the living room and then the kitchen. So the living room has tables with my cookie jars and my shipping stuff and all those kinds of materials. And then when you walk back into the kitchen, I've got my big, restaurant size containers of flour, and I've got the shelving now that you see in restaurant kitchens with all my spices and everything else that I need. Um, but this past year, I did have to put in, fortunately, again, people, entrepreneurs. I have a friend who's a plumber. He came in and he put in a touchless or a touch faucet for me and a better garbage disposal. And I have, the soft mats on the floor. So if you didn't know it was in the house, you would
It was a
think
commercial
that,
kitchen.
that it was,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. Hmm.
That, that's
Yeah.
amazing. You took the
Hmm.
home office to a whole nother level. But that was good to know too, that getting the Department of Agriculture to come out at your home, because you hear different stories of people starting their any kind of cooking business out of their home, and most people believe that they have to go and either rent a commercial space or they can't work out of their home. So that's a good thing to know, that there is a way around it to where you can
Hmm.
do this legally um, within your home.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. And what the lady who came out, her name was Kathy, when she came out to inspect my kitchen, what she told me is that it's easier to get permission to cook in your home, depending on what you're baking, to sell outside of your home because they believe that you have a closer eye on what it is that you're preparing. So in terms of, spoilage or, things being just right, they believe because you're not on a line in a kitchen, in a professional kitchen, you can better see what's going on. And granted, I had to get, I have a separate refrigerator, and I had to get a, thermometer for my refrigerator, special thermometer for refrigerator, special thermometer for my oven. Um, but it was easy, and I got to tell you, it was easy, but I didn't believe it was easy until after it was over, because there's a restaurant supply shop that I go to, and when I went to get the thermometers that I needed, talking to the owner, he was like, Cheryl, he said, it's not going to be a thing. He said, just make sure that everything is clean and you have, follow the guidelines. And I went well beyond that. I was like, I have recessed lighting. I was up in the lighting, making sure there was no dust. I moved the oven, I moved the refrigerator, making sure I got behind there, and just like, I mean, I was cleaning, Sean. And when the woman came in the kitchen, she looked around, and of course, everything was sparkling. And she saw, that I had my things separate from the regular, household things. And she looked and she saw that I had a separate place, the powder room, to wash my hands versus the kitchen sink. And then she sat down and talked to me for 45 minutes. And she was like,
Wow.
"You're good."
And most people don't
Yeah.
know it's that simple.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, but I had to say I was prepared though. So beyond prepared, I read everything that I needed to do and I made sure that it was done so that when she got here, um, I hoped that there wouldn't be anything that I hadn't done to specifications. So, and she said the only time she would come back out is if someone complained. And in the 6 years that I've been doing this, I've never had
Wow.
one complaint.
So with
Okay.
your packaging, how did you go about that part? How did you go about, deciding on your packaging? Is there someone else that does your packaging for you, or are these just labels that you are bags and labels that you are printing out and putting on your each package?
Um, they are bags and labels that I order bags, and the labels I make myself. And my labels are very simple. They're gold labels. And if I have to do like a special hoity-toity thing, then I'll order special labels that are more in line with my business card, that look more like my business card. And but for the most part, it took a while for me to kind of figure out, for shipping packaging, how I wanted that to look, and it has evolved. Actually, evolved beyond what you see on the website for those party boxes. But I just kind of had been thinking, your cookies, Cheryl, aren't regular cookies. Your cookies aren't 50 cents. Your cookies have not been sitting on the shelf at the local grocery store for God knows how long. So you need to up your game. You like to shop, me personally, like at Whole Foods. I like organic. I like, those kinds of vibes. So why not, again, in presenting who you are and who your business is, your packaging has to reflect that. And so, and also my presentation on my table at the farmer's market, I've got cookie jars, as well as my tower that we talked about earlier. But rather than the cookie jar, the knobs on the cookie jars were just plain, I switched them out to make them more fancy. My DIY kind of crafty girl came in and just kind of made it that more special, so that when you're walking past and you see my display, you're like, oh, these look really good. The jars are clean and shiny, and the cookies. I have cookies that have sparkly sugar on them, and people eat with their eyes first. And so, if that stops you in your track, and I see you slowing down, that's when I'm like, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Have you had my cookies before? Let me talk about
And
it.
then I see that
So it
Cookie
works.
Gurlie is trademarked. How was that
Yes.
process? Can you explain that?
Um, Actually, I
Okay.
really can't. The gentleman who designed my website,
Okay.
he took care of all of that. So that goes to, having people around you who have
Okay.
skills that you don't. And he was like, Cheryl, we need to trademark
Okay.
this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm deferring to your expertise. You go and you make that happen for me.
Hi, this is Sean Henry from Sean Henry's Becoming. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no listenership. It's everything you need to make in a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Let's talk about your business advisor for a second. At what point
Hmm.
what point did you realize you needed a business advisor?
Um, Probably 2 years in, when I realized that cookies for me were a thing. and just the positive energy that I was getting from customers and other women entrepreneurs that I just just happened to know in person as friend, not, I won't even say friends, just associates, women that, you come across in life, you meet at the grocery store or in my retail life, and leaving retail, deciding to leave retail and having to tell, my customers that I was, out leaving. They were like, oh, well, this is what I do for a living. Let me connect you with this person. And walking into like Williams Sonoma one time, for example, I met the manager there and getting stuff for cookies. And, she just started talking and she's like, well, this is very interesting that you're using this for cookies. Is, that's something new or whatever. And I, told her, well, I'm going into business. And she introduced me basically to had me do my first pop-up at Williams Sonoma. And she was like, you have to, come here. And her thing was, girl, come get your customer because they're here. And so it's just been like, I kind of feel like when the stars are aligned, when you ask God or the universe or whatever you believe to put things in your path, they're put there and you just have to pay attention. And my business advisor, was, is one of those people. I pay attention to what he tells me.
And how did you find him?
Just by going to the local small business association office, and there's in addition to the SBA office, there's a side of that or a branch of that called the Nussbaum Entrepreneur Center. And I just went over there one day and was like, hey, I'm Cheryl. This is what I'm trying to do. How can I get help?
Very easy, right? You ask for what you need and you get it. And
Yep.
Williams Sonoma is a cookware company.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you were
Yep.
purchasing materials to actually bake the cookies with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Just like some fancy sugars, I think that day, some sanding sugars to go on the cookies. And the manager was talking to me and she was like, oh, what are you doing? And la, la, la. And also from that, doing a pop-up there, and actually I did a couple of pop-ups there. I actually did a kids cookie camp there at one point. It was during the summer when the kids were out of school and they have cooking classes and things. And she and I created a little camp for the kids to come in, which was kind of fun.
It's always fun
So,
working with kids.
mm-hmm,
And
yeah,
they can boost your creativity as well.
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So do you continue to do camps and trainings?
I don't do the camps so much anymore just because my time has just become very limited. Um, and in the spring and summer now, I do like 4 farmers markets a week. And so that with my retail outlets and my online orders, it just kind of takes up a lot of my time. But I've been thinking about maybe in the seasons when it's kind of slow, just to pick it back up with, since the slow season is usually when kids are still in school, maybe to do something like with stay-at-home moms, that kind of thing. Some cooking with them, cooking and baking with them.
Okay, so let's rewind just a little bit. Okay, so you started cooking in your home or baking in your home when you started Cookie Gurlie. And
Mm-hmm.
at what point did you know you had to have, or what documentation did you need when you started selling to the public out of your home?
Well, I had to have the certification from the Department of Agriculture, and had my business license from the state. And that was pretty much it, and following, the guidelines from both, just in terms of how things were presented at the farmers market, for example, and how I actually, for me though, also how I choose to present things in my packaging when I ship stuff, and how, even though that I've been given guidelines, because I want to compare myself to a high end, or present myself as a high end brand of cookie, I can't just put it out there any kind of way. And so I take a lot of care and thought into how things are set up at my markets and when I sell. And in my retail outlets, I do take like my own stand and my own sign, that they put up, so that when folks walk in, which has worked, they're like, oh, I went in this store and I saw, your label when I was looking at the cookies, and the label looked familiar, and I knew that they were yours.
Mm.
And so I bought them. So I guess it's kind of branding.
Mm-hmm. So the Department of Agriculture, did you find them, or did they come out to you, or how did that work? How did the Department of Agriculture know that they needed to inspect your kitchen?
I reached out to them, and talking to my business advisor, he told me what I needed to do. So like 2 years in, I was, just kind of doing it just to see, what would happen. And then when I decided that I wanted to make it long term and reached out to the Nussbaum Event Center, they gave me contacts. This is what you need to do. These are the people that you need to call.
Okay.
And so I just followed up and did that.
So with new entrepreneurs, the who are just getting started and or realizing, or maybe a year or two in, and they're realizing, okay, this particular business is something that I'm going to do. This is going to be my business. Of course, the businesses may morph into other things. Like you said, you've done the kids camp, and you're thinking about doing something with single moms right now. So your business can definitely grow legs and have other streams of income coming in, but the base of it, once you realize what the base of it's going to be, do you recommend entrepreneurs to get a business advisor? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just find someone who, if not a business advisor, quote unquote, like someone who's a business advisor in official capacity, a mentor, someone, to guide you through, the initial steps, to help you kind of like hash out what you have now, even if it's nothing. Talk to you about your strengths, your personal strengths and your challenges, and then go from there. So, for example, when I was doing the event planning, when I morphed it from Table for Two into the event planning, I took a page literally from one of my books that I had read called Make a Name for Yourself. And one of the things that was suggested in the book is that you get, you know, five, 6 people that you're really close to, be their family or friends, and have them over for, cocktails, dinner, what have you, and create like a questionnaire about what they see you being able to do as a person, your strengths or weaknesses, be they see that you have a sparkling personality, or you're very organized, or they see that you're a creative artist, or that you write well, even little thank you notes or whatever it is. And that can kind of help you kind of get a better focus on what it is that you want to do. Or if you have something in play right now, ask them what they think. And I'm sure that if they are your really good friends, they know that you're doing this, and what they see you doing really well in that aspect, and again, what they see you're having a challenge with. And so that can help you hone it in, and then maybe take that information and then reach out to your local small business association or an entrepreneur group and have them help you even take it a step further, and maybe reach out to, they can maybe connect you with someone who's doing something that you want to do, and you can learn from them, which is
It
always a
really
great thing.
is there any other business professionals that you would recommend entrepreneurs have to help along in their business?
I would suggest, of course, an accountant, someone to help you with marketing, and that's actually a challenge for me. And it's more, I know that I need to do it, but I'm trying to learn to do these things myself, because there's also a cost factor in hiring these people. So it might be someone that you can do a trade with. If you want somebody to help, build your website, for example, or create content for your social media, maybe you can trade with them in some way. But I would definitely, sit down and think about how you want to get the word out about your business, and then go to a business advisor maybe, and maybe they can help you determine what people you need around you. And for example, like with marketing, I have, even though it's not in my budget, my marketing is basically word of mouth, and I do social media as well. But I have other entrepreneur friends around me who I can call and be like, I'm trying to do this. I saw you did this on your Instagram feed. I want to learn how to do that. And I can get it like a quick 5 minute, Cheryl, do
Mm-hmm.
this, do this, do this. And then I give them a cookie and everybody's happy.
Of course. So, okay. So you said, so with marketing, how did you get into the retail outlets and the farmers markets? We have word of mouth. So how did you get in front of the people to give them your cookies?
Well, that was just, again, talking. I can talk a lot, Sean. You know that our very first phone call years ago, we talked a lot. So I talk a lot, and talking to different people, and they're like, oh, you need to get into, like, my very first farmers market was Greensboro Farmers Curb Market. And I happened to know a woman who was on the board there. And she's like, go tell them I told you to come. And so I went, gave samples, which was kind of, I won't say common sense to me, but it was just like, they need to taste my cookies. So here, I'm going to bring you some. And then they went to the board. I had to take more samples, and I got in. And that led to other markets. I just sat down and looked and what other markets there were. And then my mother found a newspaper article that had a whole list of farmers markets in the area. And so I went around to visit and determine which ones that I wanted to be in. And then also with the retail outlets, I just Googled local, coffee shops and restaurants. And then talking to a friend of mine who got me into my first retail outlet, and he led me to another retail outlet. So it's just, talking constantly. Whoever will listen to me. What do you do for a living, Cheryl? I make cookies. Here, do you want one? And then I also reached out on my social media a few times to my customers who have more of a reach than one person. Where's your favorite coffee shop? Do you think my cookies should be there? And that has worked as well.
And then you said when you're in the retail outlets, a part of your branding is your signage and your tables. You said you bring your own tables, you bring your own sign. Can you describe to us what that looks like? And are you are you in multiple retail outlets? So is it something that stays there, or do you set it up and take it down and each time?
I am in multiple retail outlets. I'm in 5 retail outlets right now, and I take it's a 3-tiered stand, which is black, and then on top of the stand is a sign that says Cookie Gurlie, and I deliver to them like weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how fast they sell down. And my cookies are packaged and labeled, and what that looks like, it looks the same as when the customer comes to the farmer's market and sees my table. So that creates, familiarity with them. They're like, oh, I saw the stand, I saw your labels, and I knew that they were
And
your
what
cookies.
5 retail outlets are you in?
I am in Mooney's, which is in Winston, Common Grounds, which is in Greensboro, the Savory Spice Shops in Greensboro. What's the fourth one? It's called New Hope Market in Chapel Hill, and the Converge Coffee. No, I'm sorry, not Converge. Saxapahaw General Store, which is in Saxapahaw, North
And
Carolina.
how did you get in each one of these?
Just by word of mouth. Some of them word of mouth reached out to me. But like, for example, the Savory Spice Shop, I go there to buy some of my ingredients for my cookies. And again, just chatting away. And I had been going there for a while to get stuff. And then one day the owner just called me. He was like, hey, Cheryl, we've got some space. Would you consider putting your cookies in our shop? Like, sure. And considering that, I use spices from their shop, it was kind of like a great match. The Saxapahaw General Store, that was a recommendation from a customer of mine. And the Chapel Hill location, they found me at the farmer's market. The owner, he was scoping out, I guess, vendors, and came up to my table, bought some cookies, and then came back a few minutes later and was like, hey, can we get these in our shop? So it just has varied, and not without hard work, not without hitting the ground and going out and taking samples, which I've been doing the month of January as well. Since it's kind of slow, I decided that twice a week I would go out and take samples, but it's a very slow process. What I find challenging is that as much as we want stuff to come instantly and people to say, oh, I love these, the minute that you walk out the door, I leave my samples and with an introduction letter, and then I follow up. In the letter, it says, I'll call you within 48 hours. And then I follow up and I get, oh, the owner's not here. Let me leave a message. And then I call back again. And, it's a lot of back and forth sometimes.
So being persistent is very important and resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you have to realize that not everything is for everybody. And so, that can kind of bruise your ego a little bit, but you just have to move on to the next thing, and be like, you don't like my cookies, but the person down the street is going to like my cookies, and so too bad for you.
They're not on the way right now, but they will be. So
right.
Got into the other 5 outlets, and we know that you're going to be in more of them. Did they pre-order? Did they place these orders ahead of time and pay for them, or how are you funding these orders?
Well, what happens is once they've made the commitment to have my cookies in their shop, I then give them guidelines, which I've learned along the way because initially, folks were just ordering just kind of willy-nilly kind of deal. And I was like, no, this is not going to work because I'm basically, a one-woman operation. And so I came up with guidelines that in order for you to have your delivery that same week, I need to have your order request Mondays by noon. And depending on what area you're in, I will deliver either on Wednesday or Thursday of that same week. And if your order comes after 12 o'clock on Monday, if I can get you in that week for a delivery, then I will. But if not, it's going to be the following week.
Okay, so you deliver once a week. Okay, to
yes.
the 5 outlets. And then how big are the orders?
There's a minimum of a $50 order. And so that's something that I've had to learn as well, just based on costs for my gas, my time, and to make it worth my while, because 2 of my outlets, or I would say at least all of them, are a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour away. And so I had to make it worth my while. And most of my businesses have no issue with that, because I've also put into place, if you place an order less than $50, and the orders are usually anywhere from $100 up. If you place an order less than $50, sure, I'll deliver it to you, but you're going to have to pay me mileage from my kitchen to your place of business. So why not just order more cookies?
And then $50 gets about how many cookies?
They order in batches, and so it will get you, and it's a wholesale price, so it will get you probably maybe about 35 to 40 cookies, depending on what they order. So the cookies vary in price.
Okay.
So it just depends.
So if I have a local coffee shop and I want Cheryl Presley's Cookie Gurlie cookies in my coffee shop, and I just want to see how my customers are enjoying the cookies, how do I go about ordering them or becoming a client of yours?
Well, if I don't reach out to you, you can reach out to me via social media or my website, which is www.cookiegurlie.com, and girlie is spelled Gurlie. And you can reach out to me that way. I'm also on Facebook with Cookie Gurlie and Instagram with Cookie Gurlie, and you can, DM me and I can reach out to you. And what I usually do initially is, with my samples and then moving forward, I usually bring give you like samples of my top 3 bestsellers. And so then we can, and like with your first order, you can order those and see how they go. And when they sell out, reach back out and we can sort of expand the palette a little bit, or you can still, continue to order the same thing. And what I've found is, in different areas, because my retail outlets are all over the Piedmont Triad, people like different things in different areas. And so it kind of takes a while to get into the groove of what your customer is gonna like. So like, for example, in the Chapel Hill area, folks, they like chocolate, but they like my fruit-filled cookies more. Over in the Winston-Salem area, they like the chocolate cookies more. In Greensboro, they like the chocolate cookies more. Here, locally, they like, the chocolate chip cookies more, where in Greensboro they could care less about my chocolate chips, even though I think my chocolate chips are the bomb because they have homemade Kahlua in them. So, it's just a matter of trial and error, and it can take, with the retail outlets, it can take maybe like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 orders to kind of find that groove as to what's going to sell.
And then is the pricing the same? So as a retailer, I know you just gave us the wholesale pricing, but if I'm a retailer, do I choose how much to charge for each cookie, or is that something that you have given them guidance on since it is your brand?
I can give them guidance if they ask for it, but usually the owner of the establishment knows what their customer is willing to spend, and I generally leave that to them.
So you so at this point, your Cookie Gurlie is a wholesale company, or as a consumer, am I able to go on your site and buy, a box or however they come? Am I able to do that on my own?
Yep, you can do that on your own. You can go to the website, www.cookiedgurlie.com, and you can order cookies. I ship all over, and you order by the dozen. And then I also have assortment boxes, so that you can get, there are 3 different kinds of assortment. I have like your party box, your hostess box, and your Chocoholics Anonymous box. And like with the party box, for example, it comes with a cocktail suggestion card, and gives you suggestions of what cocktails go with the cookies that are in that box. So for example, in that box, there is, I make a cookie, it's called an oatmeal bite, and it has a Bailey's Irish Creme icing on it. And so I have a cocktail list there with the Bailey's Irish Creme. With my chocolate chip cookie, you can do a Kahlua and cream to dunk your cookie in to just enhance the flavor. With the shortbread, there's a nice Riesling that will go with it. So it's just, I try to run the gamut, get a little something for everybody. And one thing that I have done, as you've probably noticed, there is some alcohol in some of my cookies, because I figured since I'm a big girl, I can do that. I can put alcohol in the cookies for them are grown up.
And you have this listed so that we know not to give those cookies to the children.
Well, yeah. However, alcohol does cook out, so it's just going to lend itself to the flavor more so than the alcohol. You can't really get a buzz or anything close to it by eating my cookies. However, if you eat the cookies with the cocktails, then yeah, that's a whole different.
And hopefully people are not having cocktail parties with their children or age children. When the bank says no, Airbnb hosting without owning the property. Read how one woman took a bank's rejection for financing and turned it into a lucrative Airbnb business without owning the property. Sean shares her step-by-step process from picking her niche market to furniture purchases, all which led her to achieving superhost status in her first 30 days of hosting with Airbnb. Learn how she made almost $20,000 in less than 7 months while still maintaining her full-time job. New hosts are often unsure of what they need to do, making Airbnb harder than it has to be. Follow her story of determination and perseverance and learn how you can implement her practices in any of your entrepreneurial endeavors. Go to www.shawnhenry.com. That's www.SHUNHENRY to order your copy of When the Bank Says No, Airbnb hosting without owning the property.
Right.
But you have just
Right.
given a whole new meaning to cocktail hour. Like I can see having cookies and cocktails being a thing. Like, that
Mhm.
especially when you have told us exactly what to pair these cookies with, I can definitely see that happening for sure.
Absolutely.
It
It's
is
a
a good
really good
idea.
idea. I
And on your site,
Yeah.
I'm on your site now. So on your site, the you've listed how to pair these cookies.
And no, not in. It comes in the box. The cocktail card comes
Oh,
in
okay.
the hostess box, or I think, or the party box. I think it's the party box that has the
Okay.
cocktail cards with
So as
it.
long as we get the party box, then and I see, okay, I see it here on your site. So the party box
Mhm.
is $35 and it comes with four, one, two, three, four. Is it 16 cookies? Okay, 16 different cookies for
Mhm.
$35. And it tells you right here on the site um what to sample the cookies with, or have what drinks to have with the cookies. So that's definitely
Mhm.
something those event planners or the women that here in Atlanta, we do a lot of brunch, but those want to have
Mhm.
cookie or dessert time, cookie and drinks or cookie and
Mhm.
cocktails. Um, they can go to your site,
Mhm.
cookiegurlie.com, and click on shop and click on party box, and they can see right there for
Mhm.
$35 they can get 16 cookies, the different flavor cookies, and see what
Mhm.
drinks to pair that with. That sounds fun right there. I would go to that
Mhm.
for sure.
Yep. Sounds
Definitely
like a
do that.
plan.
Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, so you said you seasonally hire people to help you, um, and
Mhm.
so with you being an entrepreneur, you do need assistance. So you do need employees at times. Okay, so
Mhm. Yep.
job shaming seems to be a common thing going around now. I see it on social media with entrepreneurs, and basically what it is people encouraging other people to not work for someone else, or they'll say you are creating. You're working someone else's vision. You're making someone else wealthy. You need to do your own thing. You need to have your own business. Now, you spoke about earlier some of the uh, challenges when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So we know that being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. What is your opinion on this
Mhm.
whole job shaming culture?
Um, I don't like it. Because again, everything is not for everybody. So some people feel really secure in knowing that they're getting that paycheck, every week or bi-weekly, however it is. And some people are better at, I, I won't say following or not being a leader, but just being in a position where um, they know what to do day to day. They know what's expected of them versus stepping out and kind of, just kind of floating or not being and being very unsure. And that's, it's okay to have a 9 to 5 job. There's nothing wrong with that. My parents have had 9 to 5 jobs. You know, I know lots of other friends and family who have regular 9 to 5 jobs and have done very well and have provided for their families. And there's nothing wrong with that. This whole thing of job shaming is, I think, is just kind of ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous. And if you are in touch or in close proximity with someone who's job shaming them, or job shaming you, I would say, um, just, step back and ask them, what are they doing? And if they have their own thing, then that's great for them. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. And you have to stand in your truth and know what's going to work for you and your family.
Definitely. I completely agree. And just like you said, you need someone who is willing to help you in your vision. So if you're shaming that person or
Hmm.
that type of person, you're going to burn yourself out by trying to do everything on your own. Okay.
Absolutely.
So another
Absolutely.
if you can't tell, I'm on Instagram a lot, but another thing that I see that goes
Hmm.
around is the gross narrative. So it's basically the gross versus net report. Most people highlight their gross, and their gross profits with their business. You see a lot of people, oh, I made $1 million in, in less than 30 seconds, or they you see stuff like that. They're reporting, um again, they're reporting the gross of what they're making. What is your opinion on the gross
Hmm.
report narrative?
Um, I don't think that they're being totally truthful. So it's like, out of that $1 million that you've made in, 2 hours or whatever it may be, how much of that do you have to give to your marketing person? How much of that do you have to pay out in rent and salaries, in product, in your bill, for your building that you're in, employees, whatever it may be. Take all that out and then tell me what your net is, and then we can talk. And it's great to know that you've made so much, but then, um, be real. Let's be realistic about it. Out of that, what do you have to pay? So, or what do you have left, I should say. So I just think, it's all bravado. It's not necessarily true. You can't really believe everything that you're reading there. You have to really be analytical and pick apart
Hmm.
what you're seeing there.
I agree there as well. I do. um Avoiding burnout as an entrepreneur, what is the most rewarding part of entrepreneurship that you've experienced?
Um, the most rewarding part, I would say, and that has been through all of my entrepreneurial gigs, is meeting people I would not have ordinarily have met, and having the blessings that I've gotten through meeting said people, um, and just being able to just walk in my truth, and knowing that there are great people out in the world who will love and support what you're doing, as long as you show that you love what you're doing. So I feel like that's been the greatest reward for me as an entrepreneur. And being like, some days, I'll go to market and I have regular customers who know me, and have known me for so many years, and they know when I'm not having a good day. And they'll come behind my table and they're like, so what's going on? Let's talk about it, and call me, here's my phone number, and that kind of thing, which is really great. I've had one customer who, he asks me all the time. He'd be like, Cheryl, he said, when are you going on vacation? And I always give it back to him. I'm like, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't get vacation. If I'm not here, who are you going to get your cookies from? And then recently he came to me and he was like, Cheryl, he said, I have a condo off the coast of North Carolina, and I want to gift to you a week to go and have some time. And he said, you don't have to take, the whole week because I know how you are. He said, but here it is. And I was like, what? Why would you do that? And he said, because, my wife and I, we love you and we want you to take some time. So pick your week. Let me know when you want to go. And who knows if I would ever have gotten such a blessing, working a regular 9 to 5,
Absolutely. Have you taken some time off?
Actually, I'm
Okay.
going the end of the month. And then like on Sundays I try to power down and do like self-care if it's nothing but, being in my pajamas all day, watching Netflix or whatever, or making sure that, I take the time to connect with friends and spending time either on the phone or in person. Let's go have brunch, that kind of thing. And because some days it's really hard. Some days, as an entrepreneur, as I'm sure you know, Sean, you're just really tired and exhausted, and you don't want anybody calling your name, and you don't want to see another text. You don't want to, you just need to
Hmm.
like shut it down for a minute. And that for me, it can turn me into a hermit. So I've tried to make a real conscious effort to reach out to my friends, to my family, and I've told them as well, if you don't hear from me, please feel free, to pull me out. I have a friend who makes sure that, when I can, that I get out and I walk, or I love to do yoga. Um, Cheryl, come on. You may not have done yoga for the last 3 months, but come on. You know, you're not vaping
Hmm.
right now. Come on.
You definitely need to do those things, the self-care, and take time for yourself, like you described, to avoid the burnout, or you will not be the best Cheryl
Mhm.
you can be. And ultimately everything that you've worked so hard for uh, can start to fall apart. What is
Mhm.
what
Absolutely.
what is one
Absolutely.
action a new business owner can do to get past that stagnant phase, or like you said, to uh, kind of rejuvenate themselves in their business?
Um, I would say just kind of find what it is that inspires you and gives you peace. Um, if it's just going to the local park and just sitting in, the weather's changing now, just sitting and enjoying Mother Nature, listening to the kids play, the birds squawk, or, whatever it is. Um, listen, I'm an audible book person, listen to a book, um, hang out with like-minded friends who realize that you may need some downtime. You may need some, to step away from your business for a couple of hours just to, you know, gossip, just to, have a cocktail, do whatever it is in the company of someone who supports you and understands. If you just want to sit there and be quiet, then, that's okay too. And then have them order cookies to feed you while you're sitting there being quiet. But go to a museum, whatever it is that feeds your soul. Just do it. And if you're not, if you love to cook, if you love to watch, cooking shows or outdoor adventure shows, or whatever it is, just sit and do that, because we don't, as entrepreneurs, have time to do the things that we did prior to coming to becoming an entrepreneur. And so, if you can go back to that, then that's a great thing that can, um, just kind of rejuvenate you, get you, de-stressed, get a pedicure.
You're right about that. You hit it right on the head. As an entrepreneur, you're constantly thinking. So it's different than when you were working your uh, traditional job, because you would focus on it while you were there,
Hmm.
and then when you leave, you can kind of some people are good at leaving work at work, and they're able to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
But as an entrepreneur, you're constantly thinking about the next thing, in your case, dreaming about new cookie creations. So it
Mm-hmm.
can
Yep,
be, you do
absolutely.
have to schedule in some time to have for yourself. Like you said, you take Sundays and decompress and in order to um, stay sane, I guess is a good way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay sane and be ready for those
Hmm.
orders that come in on Monday morning.
Okay, what is your the impact that you're hoping to achieve in our segment legacy building? Let's talk about that.
Um, just being able for like I don't have children, but I have lots of younger cousins and lots of young folks around me. So for them to be able to realize that you can do what it is if you have some crazy wacky idea. You can, if you want to find a way to monetize it, sit down and think about it, get those people around you, that will help you, and you can come up with something that's really, you know off the wall fabulous, that people are going to be like, oh my god, I've never seen this before, I've never had this before, and yes, I will pay you for it. And also that it's okay not to be an entrepreneur, but I feel like as a human on this earth, you, for me anyway, I always want to be giving. I always want to be a light to someone. And for me, making my cookies is shining my light on to someone else, because when they leave my table at the farmer's market, or when they order cookies and get them, or you buy them at the retail outlets, I've seen the smiles and I know that they're happy. And if you're having, a bad day, a cookie's going to make it better. A smile from me. If you don't buy a cookie, you come by my table and you just say hi. I'm going to say hi to you. I'm going to say, how are you doing? And you don't have to buy a cookie, but just to spread that light, to be a light for someone else, I think is what I would like my legacy to be, and to be supportive. But also, being supportive means that if you come to me with something that's just like crazy, crazy, we'll sit down and talk about it and we can try it. But as a friend, as someone who's connected to you, if I see that you're beating your head against the wall, and I'm not the only one that's seeing that, I'm going to be that supportive person and be like, maybe we need to go a different way. And hope that you'll be able to receive that and not necessarily stop what you're doing, but just find a different way to
Hmm.
do it.
Definitely. Well, our last question in our interview with on Sean Henry's Becoming is: are entrepreneurs born or made?
I think that an entrepreneur is made. Um, I think that um, you can be born into a home where there are entrepreneurs, your parents, your extended family, close family, or what have you. But you can see, if you know yourself, you can see either that's going to work for you, you want to take that leap of faith, or you can see that it's not. And there are some folks who, are born into that entrepreneur deal. They may have be born with like what I would call a silver spoon in their mouth, but they still go and work for someone else because that's not for them. Or it's the opposite, they see that this is working and it's working really well, and they get that support from their family, and they step out on that faith and they're very successful, which is great. And then they may not be, and then they might figure out that it's not for them. So, but I definitely don't think you're born with the entrepreneurial mind. I think you have to glean it from your surroundings, from
Hmm.
the people around you.
Okay. And then in our last segment, Growing Our Tribe, we shout out another small Black-owned business, as well as a book that's helped us in
Hmm.
growing our minds, which will in turn grow our business. So, can you give us a name of another Black-owned small business, and what do they do, and how do we
The small business that I'd like to shout out is called Small Wonders Educational Children's Center.
In our last segment, Growing Our Tribe, we shout out another small Black-owned business, as well as a book that has helped us in growing our minds, which in turn grows our business.
It's owned by my girl Audrey Hogan, and she is a 5-star child, or owns a 5-star child care center. And I didn't know that child care centers had these things like Michelin stars. And watching her and talking to her, and she's been in business for 20 years now, and getting advice from her and friendship from her has just been invaluable. And seeing how she nurtures her business and nurtures the children is just really, really inspiring.
Well, I think you just told us something.
Um,
I didn't know that the child care centers had a star rating either. So, Small Wonders Early Education Center in North Carolina is a
mhm,
5-star,
yep,
literally 5-star child center. Wow.
yep,
Okay.
exactly. hmm And
No, no, go
I'm
ahead. I'm
sorry, go ahead,
listening.
Sean. Um, the book that most helped me initially, and I read this book, it's been 20 years maybe, and it's called Make a Name for Yourself. And it's by Robin Rolf Fisher, or Fisher Rolf. And you can find it on Amazon. It's a very old book, but it still resonates today. In It helped me figure out the kind of person that I wanted to be and present to people, and who I hang around with, who's my tribe that it's grown called now. And the one thing that um, I've taken from the book in all these years is that you are the sum total of the 5 people that
Hmm.
you hang around most. And so I can honestly say that the majority of the people that I hang around, or should I say all of the people who are close to me, are either entrepreneurs or people who are very supportive of entrepreneurs. My best friend since we were 12 is an entrepreneur in Maryland, and who knew when we grew up that we would both be entrepreneurs. But it's also, I don't know, fate, God, being around like minded people. And the second book, I'm still kind of sitting with it. I just finished, actually, it's a new book. I just finished reading it. It's called Notes from a Young Black Chef, and it's by Kwame Onawachi. And it talks about his journey as a young teenager to where he is now, being a renowned chef, and all of the things that he had to go through. And I also feel like I read a lot of autobiographies, and I don't necessarily read autobiographies for people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing. I kind of like a lot of entrepreneurial sort of input, because I feel like everybody has a struggle, everybody's on a journey, and learning how they go through their journey to get where they are it can be very inspiring regardless of what it is, their journey has taken
Mhm.
them to.
Absolutely. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us today on Sean Henry's Becoming. We have learned so much information from you. I really do appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you and order some of your delicious cookies.
You can find me online at www.cookiegurlie.com, and that's Gurlie. If you are in the Piedmont Triad area of North Carolina, you can find me, now still that it's winter, you can find me at the Greensboro Farmers Curb Market. You can find me at the Eno River Farmers Market. It's spring and summer. You can find me in Elon Farmers Market and the Burlington Farmers Market. But also on my website, there's a drop down, where is Cookie Gurlie? And there's a calendar that shows you everywhere that I am.
Manifestation says, I ask for what I want. I command what I want. I send it out into the universe, and I, without a doubt in my faith, in my belief, wait for it to come back to me. I don't look for my blessings. I send the energy out to go get it, and it comes back to find me. Michi X. Till next time, this has been an episode of Sean Henry's Becoming.